so she may not contribute as expected. So I'm just doing what we do as family and co-hosting with her to help this procedure and to help our discussion continue to go. I'll tell you why at the end of the day. But I think all of us got the information and what we're talking about tonight. And that is, can somebody tell me, I'm all over the place right now, what we're talking about tonight.
Distractions in marriage.
Distractions in marriage. Distractions in marriage. Oh my goodness gracious me. And because I've only just prepared for this in the last 30 minutes, you're going to have to do some real, talking with me on this one. I don't like to talk too much, but I do like to get everybody involved. So distraction in marriage. I think, it's a really, 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 really salient topic in terms of what it talks about. Distractions. And when we say distractions, without going too deep, just too early, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind when you hear the word distractions? What comes to your mind? Anybody? Everybody? Say something, write something. Hopefully we'll get some good responses. So I'm really asking your indulgence on this one, everybody, to please, get yourself involved, say something, write something, because as I said, I am ownership again. I'm at work right now, so I've got, I might be in and out myself, but so if we can get people talking, that'll be a good thing. So when you hear the word distraction, without affiliating it to marriage, what comes to your mind? Yes, ma'am, please go ahead. I saw somebody showing their face there. Talk, say something. Things that causes distrust. So things, isn't that interesting word there? Things that cause distrust. Okay. Anybody else? I saw that one, lady. See, thank you very much. When we hear the word distractions, what comes to our minds? Got one there before. Yeah, anybody else? Anything to say?
Anything that prevents you from concentrating on the aim or goal at hand.
Thank you very much, sir. Anything that prevents you from attaining. I like that. Anything that prevents you from attaining. So what that would imply, yes, and it's, yes, ma'am, please, Antonia, please, go ahead, ma'am.
My hands is up. I don't know if I can talk.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Bethel, okay. Let me take us to the book of 1 Corinthians 7:35.
Oh, you're going too deep already, man. You're going deep already. Hold on to that, man, please. Hold on to that one. I don't want to go into okay. Hold on to that. Anybody other, come straight back to you once we come into the text, okay? Please forgive me. Anybody else? Words? Yes, thank you, ma'am. Antonia.
Anything that causes you to lose focus.
Right, okay. Anything that causes us to lose focus. Thank you very much. So it's something, what it would say, as E.C. had said, that means you have something in mind. You have a goal in mind. You're heading towards something. And then something comes along, things come along that cause a distraction, that cause a derailment, that cause us to take our focus off the direction in achieving what we set out to achieve. Now, I also have this, something that prevents us or distracts us or diverts us from a set purpose. That is a distraction, something that prevents, that blocks, that disrupts our concentration, our aim, our goal. Okay, So those are just, you know, just want to look at what a distraction can be for each and every one of us, which would mean at some point in time, all of us would have had some kind of distraction, even as we're on this call right now. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. I see you. You know, even as we see these things right now, as we are on this call right now, I think there may be some of us who are thinking of other things. Okay, we're here, but sometimes our mind is somewhere else. So, yeah. So, distractions. And we're talking about distractions in marriage. Oh, I like that one, Lady C. Habits. So what are some things that are, you know, distractions in marriage? Let's go there right now. El Bethel, please talk to me right now. You want to go into text? Go into text now.
Oh yeah. The book of 1 Corinthians 7,
Yes, ma'am.
verse 35, I will read. And this I say for your own profit, not that I may put a leash on you, but for what is proper, that you may serve the Lord without distraction.
Without distraction.
Without distraction. So even God wants us to serve him without distraction. So, I mean, he wants us to focus in whatever that we do. So distraction in marriage can be anything, that takes time and energy away from the marriage or relationship, you know, to work. So it could be a series of things that has been, I see people, you know, they've written so many, you know, in the chat box. Could be anything. It could be the list of the things that you think, you know, would distract, would derail the marriage. It could be anything, habits of anything, you know. It's okay to go about, you know, it's okay to do this, but some are like not okay. Or when you overdo some, then it becomes, a bad habit. We all have our individual habits. But when it becomes too much, you know, they say too much, even when you drink, if you drink water too much, you can get drowned. So too much of everything is bad. So
absolutely. Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate that. So there's a plethora of things that can be distractions to us as individuals and to us as married people. So, I mean, I've looked at some of the things that you guys have written, and, you know, I've seen quite a few that I think we can all, in some way, some shape or form, identify with, especially as we're talking about, and I would I'd really like us to keep the concentration on this aspect that we're talking about, marriage, especially within the marital home, and how it also spills out onto other things from the marital home. So when I looked at this, I thought major distractions, major distractions, things that can be going on for us at any point in time. And someone's just called me, as I said. I'm at work. You're gonna have to pause for a moment. Do excuse me. I do apologize, guys. It's nature of the work. Yeah. So we're juggling here. One thing that I would like to do is, when we're thinking of marriage, and when I saw this topic, I felt, yeah, this is a hot topic. And again, I'm looking at a whole heap of things that can be, be involved with this. But the way I would like to look at this from the onset, with everything else that's going on with us, is to look at it from the God standard. Because I'm a believer in Christ, because that's what I believe, that the standard of God is the most important standard. And when he says something, as far as I'm concerned, that supersedes everything that is going on in and around us as individuals and our household. So the God standard is the gold standard, as I'd like to put it. Okay, and so I would have to go through that manner of approach in saying, what is God's standard for marriage, and how these distractions come along, and there are various distractions. So the God standard, we understand. Husbands loving your wives, wives honoring your husbands, all those things, which we're familiar with in Ephesians 6 and 4, Ephesians 5 and 22. Husbands, love your wife. He says, husbands, love your wife. How much? As much as Jesus loved the church. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know whether I saw this somewhere, but I certainly heard this one. Husbands, love your wives enough to die for. Now, that's a bit of a big one, but that's what Jesus did. The body of Christ is Jesus' wife, and he died for his wife. And that's what we're instructed to do as men, okay? And the women to honor their husbands. It says, it first of all says, wives, honor your husbands, before it goes down further into the text to say, husbands, love your wives. And I think the most important part of that whole thing is that the husbands love their wives. And of course, we know from Genesis 2 and verse 24, where the first instruction on marriage is given, that the man and the woman to leave everything else and hold on to each other. And I found that very, very profound, leaving and cleaving. I found that very profound. But that is the standard. God's standard is us leaving everything else, leaving everyone else and all things, and holding on to each other. So everything that everybody is talking about here, and the things that are distractions, and there are a lot of distractions. You and I know this. What are some of the distractions? Some of you have already said. Work. Yeah? Some of us have already pointed that out. I see that, man. Work, big distraction. Money, big distraction. Distrust, big distraction. A behavioral issue, jealousy, big distraction. Another huge one is relatives, big distraction. And all these, what we're looking at right now, what we're seeing each other on right now, massive distraction. Because you and I know that we can do all sorts of things with this little contraption, with the screen that you're looking at right now. You can be looking at me right now, and you can have another one right next to you that's looking at something else. Huge distraction, okay? Is there anything else that comes up for you as an individual that you've seen? Any one of these things that I've mentioned that jumps out at you? So let me just highlight what were some of the ones that you guys have mentioned and that I think are very important. Habits, porn, work, money, which relates to shopping, distrust, relatives, jealousy. These are just some that you've mentioned. Is there any one that you can relate to that you want to say something about? And you don't have to go into specific about details if you don't want to, but this is a forum where we all want to learn and glean off each other. So anybody with any of those that we mentioned and any others that might be coming to your mind, distractions in marriage. Oh, one other one we didn't mention there is children. Okay, so anybody got anything to say on any one of those things in terms of, how they can be distractions in marriage, or the effect of any one of these that might have had on you at any point in time? Because We've all, I want to, I'll put my foot out and say, I think all of us here are or have been married at some point in time. So we have some kind of knowledge what we're talking about. Anybody to say anything about their, what's been happening to them in terms of these distractions? I hear you, Sister D. Anybody, come on, talk to me now. I've done a bit of talking now. I need some some feedback from some people. If you're online, please talk to me. Talk to us. Say something. Don't leave me out in the desert. Antonia, talk to me. El Bethel, ma'am, talk to me. EC, talk to me. Makali, talk to me. Just moving off screen for a second. Letting somebody else. I'm back. Anybody, distractions? Have you had any distractions in your marriage? And what has been the outcome? Okay, there you go. Put it a different way. Sister Betty, I see you. Talk to me. Hello, anybody there? Is anybody there? Oh.
Perhaps no one's had the experience or can pinpoint that particular one, or maybe it's just a sensitive one. It could be any of those three.
Could be. Yes, it could be. Well, I've highlighted quite a few there. If that one's not one of yours, then by all means mention one that might be relative to you in terms of distractions in your marriage. Bearing in mind that marriages are so complex, so complex. Yeah, a few things that I've got a few things written down, obviously, but I would like us to have a bit of say as well. Yeah, man. Oh, we might as well wrap it up then, because I ain't gonna talk. I am not gonna do all the talking tonight. Somebody say something. Where are we all?
Personally, I don't.
Thank you, ma'am.
What my brother just mentioned earlier on, it's not every one of us has had that must have had distractions. If you haven't experienced it, so maybe there is nothing else to say, but we can generalize in terms of if we've had friends that their kind of behavior or their external friendship has caused them to be distracted in their marriages. Sometimes the advice from friends that won't keep can actually cause a distraction, to the extent that you believe in whatever your friends say that was the gospel, and then you want to apply it to your own marriage. It might not actually work for your marriage. It might work for your friend's marriage. It can be, the influence of friends or friendship, external friendship outside of your home can cause a lot of distraction, and can not just distraction, it can actually destroy the marriage itself, to the point of no return. And also our own individual behavior. Sometimes when we're set in our ways, and we think whatever our line of thought is the gospel and is the right thing, and you're not trying to be flexible or try not to accommodate your partner's or your husband's ways of thinking or behavior, can actually be a distraction, because everyone is set in their ways and they believe, okay, this is my way or no way. You understand? So it can be, it's a sort of distraction. Sometimes money can be distraction when someone think, oh, they have the highest earning power than the other one, and they want to think, oh, well, I'm in control here, I'm in charge here. It's a kind of distraction. So there can be so many things that can actually cause distraction in marriage, and that can actually destroy that marriage and destroy that home, forever, if care is
Absolutely.
not taken.
Thank you very much for that, Lady Antonia. I appreciate that contribution. Yes, if care is not taken, we can set ourselves up for failure. I like that use of flexibility. If we're not flexible in our marriages, and you said something that's very powerful there, Lady Antonia, in terms of who we're listening to. Who are our friends? Who do we relate to? Who are we, listening to, in effect? We can go and seek advice from people who have no idea, who really have no idea of where you're at. And I think in terms of what you said there, one size does not fit all. You cannot, like we would say, you can't use somebody else's watch to tell your time, because that can cause you an upheaval that, as you said there, you may never, ever be able to get out of it. Or you find yourself in a compromised position because you've listened to somebody else who's experienced, and this is the danger of these distractions of friends and supposed advisors that aren't guided by God. You can be listening to this person when the fact of the matter is that person may not be telling you their truth. They may not be sharing what is really going on with them. They're good at giving the advice, but deep down in the corridors of their own home, in their own bedroom, they are, only God knows what's going on for them. So we have to be, wise about who and what we are listening to, because as we know, John 10:10 tells us that the enemy of our soul comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So with all those three things there are all parts of the distraction to steal our joy, to kill whatever God has set in mind, to destroy and disrupt whatever is godly in our lives. He'd love to destroy marriages. So if he can get any one of us distracted from, as E.C. said earlier on, from the goal, it would derail us, and the whole institution of marriage that you are building with your partner then becomes, falls into jeopardy. So I wrote a few things down, and Sister D wrote some things down, some of the distractions, visual distractions. Yeah, visual distractions. And, what are some of those visual distractions? Talk to me, people. What are some of those visual distractions that come?
I'm not sure if these fall into the visual category, but it's often been said that when children, especially at a young age, come into a marriage, it tends to take the eyes of the women generally, of the marriage itself, into becoming mothers and obviously caring, paying more attention to their children as opposed to the marriage, which is, I think I read in one of the charts, somebody said children. And that is very, very true, I believe, because I've often heard about that one. I was actually listening to the Obama, Michelle Obama and interview on Netflix. And then she did say, out of their 30 years of marriage, perhaps the first 10 years, she probably didn't really care about Obama, because that was when the children were growing. That was when she paid more attention. Yep. But obviously everybody sees them now and think, oh, the perfect couples in the world. But a quarter of their marriage life was typical, perhaps with what majority experienced.
Mm. Very, very good. Very good. Thank you, Easy. That's, you know, I know it sounds a bit contrived to call children a distraction. I know it's a bit of a painful thing, but I don't know the right word to use. But they distract in a way. Their behavior changes the status quo. It changes the plan, because no matter which way you plan for it, I do believe and agree that once children come in onto the playing field, it is a completely different playing field. And to that extent, I do say, and as part of our counseling, when we're counseling couples that want to get married, that, you know, I say, once you get married, try your best not to have children for the first year or two, because they come in and it changes the landscape of the goal. Because the way you are, here you are, two lovely people all over the moon, over each other, lovey-dovey, touchy-touchy, all that, and you're just swooning over each other, and you just want to be with each other, and it's you. And your focus, hopefully, is together at the early stages. Once the children come in, it is an automatic thing that mama takes part of that wholeness and is focused on the children. It's maternal instinct. And if we men aren't secure in ourselves and in our relationships, this is when this supposed, in quote, distraction, which is a blessing from God, then becomes a bit of a bone of contention. So we've got to be careful of that. So thank you very much for sharing that. But children are not a distraction. They're a blessing that are meant to help us. They are sent, they are given to us by God to develop and show his glory through them and give them back to him. So so children can be. So I want to say some of the visual things, and I say this as a man, okay? And I don't know, maybe the women don't do this, but one of the visual things is, as men, what we see, how that can be distracted, how that can take your focus, how that can distort what you are supposed to focus on. So, you know, obviously, we can say it or we might not say it, you know, looking at the opposite sex. That's one thing, okay? So that plays a big distraction. And if we're not secure in ourselves, most importantly, if we're not secure in our relationship with him, within ourselves, with our partner, then that distraction can cause all kinds of things, male and female. Okay. Another thing that I'm looking at is our actions. And I do believe distractions will always come in relationships, because relationships are in of themselves attract different kinds of distortions, because you're trying to build. Hopefully you go into the marriage trying to build together, aiming for something together. This is the goal. This is what we're trying to do. This is where we're aiming for. This is what we want to do by so and so time. So when you have a goal and you're aiming for something and you're playing for something and you're reaching for something, there's always going to be what I'd call hurdles or stumbling blocks, or as we're talking about today, distractions that will try and derail us. As we said, steal, kill, destroy. Anything that can disrupt the status quo, God's plan for us. Remember, God's got a plan for each and every one of us. And that should be what we need to focus on. That if we keep our focus on him, those distractions, even though they will come and do come, we'll be able to go back to the author and the finisher of our faith and ask him for his guidance, ask him for his help, to take a step back so that we can look at where we're at and rejig and refocus and recalibrate ourselves and get back on track. So our actions, sometimes things happen that cause our eyes, our gaze to go off the wheel, to take our hands off the wheel. So we're on a journey. We're heading somewhere. You're driving your car. You're going towards your goal. and certain things come into your peripheral view that just cause you to take your focus off the goal, the distractions of life, distractions of situations. So, yeah. Yes. Anybody got anything they want to add or anything they want to say in terms of what we've looked at so far? Anything, please. Don't leave me here. Anybody else? Anybody home? How can money be a distraction? How can distrust be all right. One big one, and I hope that we will contribute on this one. Relatives. How can relatives be a distraction in our homes?
Too much interference, allowing too much interference, I should say.
Okay. Do you want to expand a little bit on that? What do you mean by allowing and too much?
If couples are not matured enough to be able to know where relatives' inputs are limited to, that can cause a massive distraction. Because naturally, you would respect and obviously value the opinions of your relatives, of your family, I should say. But if you then allow their input to overshadow what you are supposed to be building with your partner, with your new family, then you haven't created that boundary. There was this old song, I think it was So Obey or something, that said, where does the mother and the wife come into the marriage? In as much as they're both very important, they both have very different roles. So therefore, there has to be a boundary. There has to be that maturity where you know where the limits are. So therefore, you don't allow interference. As much as you take advice, such as you said earlier, where we hear or seek advice from people that are not coming from you don't know where those advices are coming from. In as much as everybody's advising, they all have good intentions, but their intentions might not match your aspirations. So we need to learn how to put a limit to it. I believe that's one of the major ways relatives can be a distraction, not putting limits to it and not being able to discern.
And that is a big one. So thanks so much for sharing that. You see, that is a huge one. And I hear a few words that I'm very, very, I like that you've mentioned them, better coming from the floor than from me. But we're talking in marriage, talking about boundaries, talking about advice, talking about good intentions, okay? Boundaries in our marriages. I, for one, cannot overemphasize the need for boundaries. And I say that as one that failed in that respect. Okay? I failed and I know what it could have caused, but for the grace of God. So, my question then is, who sets the boundaries for the relatives? Anybody to answer that? Who sets the boundaries for the relatives and why? And I'm really looking for our input on this. Hopefully not you again, EC. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, bro. I want somebody else to say something right now. Who sets the boundaries and why? Yes, Antonia, please.
My thing is, this is me personally. I'm not saying that's the gospel for every marriage. I think it has to be in agreement. It's both parties rather than one person, because the husband can decide, I'm going to be the one that sets the boundary. Then he can set the boundary that is going to favor his relatives and not your relative. And then there is going to be the home becomes a war zone. Or your mom said, she said, he said, but let's come together. In agreement, let's set boundaries. Okay, to what extent we won't send them to either family to interfere. So who do we allow to interfere? Who do we not allow? Do we allow or we don't allow at all? So I think it has to be in agreement so that there is no kind of confusion within the home or strife within the home.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So a joint decision on who sets the boundaries. I like that. I like that. I think that's very important. If you can come to, that kind of agreement, that is a very powerful thing. I take on board what you said there, my brother, Obi, saying a husband because he's the head of the home. Yes, I agree with that as well. And as you said, Lady Antonia, it is different strokes for different folks. One, again, to use that phrase, one size does not fit all. But I would say, again, anybody else, any other opinions? Who sets the standards? At what space? At what time in the relationship that you are developing do you set these boundaries?
I think it's from the onset rather than do it in the middle of your relationship, because you don't want to start firefighting in the midst of the ocean. So it's best to set it from the beginning rather than in the middle, or wait until something happens and then you say, oh, come on, we need to do that. I think it's best to set it from the onset.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And also, even, to some extent, I agree with the fact that the man should set it because he's the head of the home, but he can set it, but in conjunction in agreement with, with the wife. At least once they've had a discussion, then he can take the lead, because at least it's something that they've both agreed on. Because I know
like that.
Men will always be men, and we see them as the stronger sex or whatever. But I think in anything, I think they still have to be, in discussion. Then he can still take the lead. I'm the head. Yes, I want to lead, and which is good, as long as women agree that, okay, yes, he's having a conversation with you, he's consulting you, he's not just making that decision with that, running it past you first. So, but we still need to let the man lead the home. He's the head of the home, so that's the way I see it.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you real good. Appreciate that, ma'am. I really appreciate that contribution. Yes, and I agree with you. And I agree with you, Obi, that at the end of the day, it has to be a joint decision. And again, I say this because I speak from my experience. I think there is a strength, the strength and the character of the boundaries being set and spoken of from the man's perspective are so much more powerful. And I think they speak a certain, they give the wife a certain awareness of, yes, I can trust my man to stand up for me. And I think that also speaks volumes to the ladies that we're married to. And I say that, and again, and here's me again taking ownership of where I failed in that respect, in that I was a person that didn't stand up for my wife at the early stage. I didn't stand up for her because I was scared of my mom. Loved her, but I was afraid of her. And everything had to evolve around my mom. Until I understood the God standard, okay? And the God standard supersedes our cultural standards. And the God standard is that I, as a man, I'm supposed to look after the wholeness of that which is called marriage. So I'm supposed to look after my wife. And as someone said earlier on, in terms of, I think it was UEC that said, the place of mum and the place of wife are two very, very high positions in our lives. Mother or father, either side, it really doesn't matter. But the moment that you take and put your mother or your father in a place higher than your husband or your wife, you're already setting yourself up for a huge amount of trouble. And, you know, it shouldn't really happen. So, you know, we need to understand, yes, man's role as the head of the home. Take charge as the head of the home. Take charge, by all means, but do it in conjunction with your partner. Sit down prior, have the discussion. What do you think is right, darling? What do you think is right, darling? Let's find a middle point in how we're going to do this. Like what I say to my kids, all right? My children are saying, oh, when we have children, mommy's coming to stay with us. Hello, ain't just mommy, because mommy and daddy made you. You ain't taking my wife away from me. And that's something both of us agree upon. And that's just the children, okay? So we got to know within ourselves that when, especially one of the biggest distractions, again, I'm speaking from my own experience, one of the biggest distractions is family and friends, and where one of them, where most of those family and friends, let me be specific now, where family are more of one person's side and the effects that can have on the other partner, where we're not talking about how that person's feelings are being affected by these distractions. For the first, I think it was 7 or 8 years of my marriage, I had people living with me. I think the first time that we went away, where after we got married, I think it was like 15 years after our marriage, before we got away for the very first time as husband and wife. Because we all have family. And that's one of the beauties of our culture. But we have to know where, as we've been talking about, the boundaries are to be set and not to be crossed over. Obi, you want to say something?
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
The last speaker has said one or two things, but what I just want to say is that there are situations in which, well, I believe we should allow circumstances or situation to prop up before, because by the time you start envisaging that, okay, this is going to be a problem, and at the end of the day, it doesn't come that way, then things go wrong at times. So
yes, sir.
I always, family, husband and wife should always have it at the back of their mind that when situation arises, how do we tackle it? And in a situation like that, you don't put the cart before the horse, if I'm making sense. So
yes, sir.
My belief is that when situation comes up, then let's sit down, let's see how we're going to take it. And the man should always have that responsibility to say that, okay, this is what I want from my family. Just like the case that you cited now, having the fear of your mom, and at the end of the day, things start going wrong. So my opinion is that situations should always determine decisions. That's just what I want to say. Rather than not envisaging that, okay, this, and if it doesn't come that way, then what do we do?
Absolutely. Appreciate that, sir.
Yes, sir.
So situations, making your decisions and how you're going to progress based on the situation at the moment, not preempting.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Right. Appreciate that. Anybody else got anything else they want to say in terms of, the boundaries where, or probably if you're brave enough to say where you felt insecure in your, in your relationship because of boundaries that were not, or boundaries that were blurred, that they were not clear. So you didn't feel secure in that part of the relationship, and it became a distraction. Anybody else want to say anything on that? Sister Shadi, I'll see you. Don't keep quiet on me now. Say something. Lady Betty, I see you there. Come on, say something.
I'm just joining. I will have something to say later.
Well, later is almost time up right now, big sis. All right.
Could
Yes.
I say something? Yeah.
Please.
I just feel
Quiet.
that, yes, it's just because of where I am. I
Okay.
just feel that it's very important to communicate one's feeling with one's partner, no matter how sometimes silly it seems, because before you know it, it becomes an issue. It could even just be, no matter how flimsy it seems or petty, it's always nice to communicate it. But if one is angry to one, then be patient when you feel calm and you're able to express it. Because I find that sometimes the things that causes distractions, anger, and all sorts in the marriage, it's not really what is said, it's how it is said. So if there's anything, because sometimes what causes the distraction could just be a feeling of jealousy or insecurity,
Go on now.
Yeah, and you have to find a way of conveying it to your partner, in the calmest way, so that it doesn't become an issue. Because sometimes if it's the husband or the wife that is being told, out of a defense mechanism, they now act, how will I put it, in an angry way, and you might not resolve it. It could now become a mountain, a molehill can now become a mountain, so to speak. So yeah, that's just my take.
Absolutely. Communication. I cannot, and I will never stop over appropriate communication. It's like when we're talking with God, we know what is prayer. Prayer is communication.
Yes.
Talking to God, and what else? What is prayer, beloved?
Talking to God and hearing from God.
Yes. Talking to him and hearing from him. So prayer is a dialogue. It's not a monologue. If it's a monologue, then somebody is not paying attention and somebody is missing some information. So the same thing that should trickle down. The way that God the Father interacts with us, as men more so, we should be interacting with our lovely ladies. Yeah, to understand in the moment the feeling that's going on. I'm gonna come back to that. Sister Shadi, you want to say something? I see you highlighted.
What I have to say is that, lack of love can also cause distraction in marriage. Our God is love, and marriage has been ordained of God. So it means in every marriage there should be love. When there is love, there wouldn't be any distraction at all, because you will like to behave like our God as well.
Ma'am. Amen.
Yes.
Can somebody amen to that? Well, here's the thing, and we've got to be, thank you very much for sharing that, Sister Shadi. We got to be understanding the kind of love we're talking about. We're talking about agape now, because all the other loves, the Felicio and all that, they are distractions. All the other type of loves, apart from the agape, are distractions, and they're all emotive, and therefore they cause us a whole lot of aggro further down the line. So, just going back to what Sister Tilly said there, in terms of finding the right moment in the midst of that distraction to speak to your partner, to know when is the right time, and to communicate the right way, message that you're hearing and that you want to convey. So communication and expressing the feelings. I think, the distractions is the feelings going on at any point in time, to understand your partner and look at what's going on in the moment, to see what in that moment in time, and to be calm about how we're conveying the message that we want to convey. Again, and as you said, I love you versus I love you. Same 3 words, different messages, distractions. Okay. All right. Anything else they want to add in terms of distractions that could possibly? I mean, we've looked at a few things. How we can use a whole lot, any one of them, work as a distraction. We can use money as a distraction. As we said, we've only looked at relatives per se, really today. Relatives and how we have to be safe. We need to create a safe landing space for our relationships so that these distractions, and make no mistake, family, make no mistake, those distractions will come, but it's how we deal with them together or apart, preserve what we're talking about. And because we are talking about distractions in marriage at the moment and distractions in our lives as well. Some of these things play out in our lives that we have nowhere to go to, nobody to talk to, and then, it causes a whole lot of other things to happen to our lives. So if there's nothing else, anybody else wants to add, I'm gonna, I think we are pretty much on 22 now. Oh, mama, come on now, say something. I didn't want to go there tonight, but you brought it up right now. So, Lady Toyin, go on. You posted it. Can you not speak? If you can't speak, just send me a message now.
I'll try. I
Go
can't
ahead.
speak much where I am, but one thing I discovered is that if we do not carry our partners along in our service to God, especially if one is someone that is very approachable, or you're in the position of a counselor to people, you might find that, yes, you've gone for your service, and after service, quite a number of people want to speak to you, about one thing or the other. It is paramount to let your partner know, because you could get so involved or engrossed in trying to help people that your partner is not getting attention and is just waiting there. And it's not a one-off. If care is not taken, it goes on and on like that. And before you know it, it creates a gulf. Jealousy comes in, complex comes in, and all sorts. And we all know that the devil, his major way of causing problems for people is deception.
Yes.
So, it begins, the imagination of the partner that feels probably a bit neglected could start running wild.
Absolutely.
Even when all the other partner is doing is helping genuinely, there is nothing else apart from purely trying to do God's work, using his talents, to help. Probably even maybe he's a lawyer, or he has a position whereby people are constantly looking for, how he could advise them, for instance. And in the course of doing that, if the other partner feels that, they're constantly waiting on their partner, then it causes a distraction.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Huge points there. Huge points there. And I take note of the message that you actually posted in terms of service to the Lord. We can be so caught up in doing work for the Lord that we don't give place to the ones that matter most. Distractions. We can use God as a distraction, for which we really, really, really do need to be careful. We all know so many homes that so many men and women in quotes of God have houses have fallen apart because they're so busy supposedly doing the work of God and neglecting and being distracted from looking after things that matter most, which are their family. Family, you, family, God. All finding the balance on how you're going to do your ministry is so important. Not at the neglect of your family. We can't continue to use that as a crutch, as servants of God. That because I'm serving God and my family, first allegiance to your family, bringing God, bringing them along with you. So thank you so much for that. Anybody else got anything else to say before we wrap this up tonight? I think we've had quite a bit. We've spoken quite a bit about some of the things that go on, being aware of the boundaries, being aware of some of the distractions, on our relationships, and how we can be aware to know when those distractions are coming and with each other to be preempting the situation. I mean, not to preempt the situation, but to see what's leading to where it's leading to, so that we have discussion how we can find a remedy and put ourselves back on track to attain the goal or to get to the destination as we intended to. Anybody else? Anybody else got anything else they want to add? Just looking at the messages. Anybody, anything to say? Okay. Yes, I like that one. OB, you said earlier on, boundaries are a continuous process. So different circumstances require different situations and require different manner of approach. Oh, well, on that note, I'm gonna wrap this up for now. Anybody else? Okay, so I see your hand up there, Lady Antonia. Please.
I'm not sure if it's been mentioned, extramarital relationship.
Oh, do we want to go there tonight?
Well, maybe not, but at least we can put it down as one that can.
Yes, indeed. I wrote it down. Yes.
Yes, extramarital affairs. I think someone mentioned Paul. That's a huge distraction. Because, you know, extramarital affairs, you're absolutely right. You might as well say so. You know, those are a huge what has caused this distraction? How did it come about? Again, you know, let's be real. Let's be real about this. Yes, we know it can destroy, but how, what we say in Yoruba, anybody now to finish that one? Thank you very much. If there was not that means there was not
a crack in the hole.
If there was not a crack somewhere, the enemy cannot get.
Lizard cannot enter.
Yes, we know. We all know it. Something happened, and you know, sometimes we need to be looking at these things more before we get into marriage. Looking and asking the hard questions. Asking the hard questions. These days, they will say, what's your how do they say it? What's your count? What's your head count or something like that? Anybody know that term? Now this is the language that they're using right now. What's your head count or something like that? And being real as to whether you want to go down this road. You don't know what you're setting yourself up for. And if you do want to go down that route, then you better be praying, and you better be praying real good, you know, so that those things, when the distractions come down the line, you're aware that, okay, I didn't know about this, so I'm gonna, how am I gonna maneuver around this? Or before you go into how you're gonna pray and go to deliverance, get the appropriate deliverance for before you go into the marriage, so that distraction of those paths, in terms of what we're talking about right now, don't hinder where you want to go. And once you see them, let's not hide behind whatever super spirituality. I will be fine. Shout out, male and female. Once you see your partner spending time on the screen and he has to hide something when you come into the room, something's up. Let's be real. Something's up. That's a distraction for your marriage. It's happening right there. If your partner can't have your phone number, doesn't know your password, distraction. Anyway, I love you. I appreciate you. And if I'll speak with the Sister D. We might continue this again because she might have a different perspective on this. And I love and appreciate every single one of you that have contributed, that have participated tonight. And I pray that the blood of Jesus will continue to speak to our all and continue to keep us on track and limit the distractions, that even when the distractions do come, that we'll be able to get back on track and fulfill destiny. Amen. Yes, phone is a distraction. And the tell-lie vision. I love you, appreciate you. Have you a beautiful, God-tastic rest of the week, and by God's grace, we will link up next week. Shalom.
All right. So good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Oops. Dark again.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Bless you. Shalom.
Good
Shalom.
night.
Bye.